Here are 5 uncommon ways on how to progress your health away from chronic fatigue syndrome. If you are suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome and you are going around in circles, you literally take 1 step forwards and 4 steps back, and you feel like you've tried everything, these 5 uncommon ways are going to literally give you a pathway to help you start to progress your health in ways that you never imagined. Let's get into today's video. So if we think about it, to progress our health, we need to ultimately have energy to do so. And so if we reverse engineer this conversation, ultimately, if there is no progress, there is no energy. And the whole point of this conversation is to help you get more energy. And we need to debunk a few things before we get into the 5 ways. If you think about it, overwhelm or energy deficit is one of the biggest problems. And energy deficit can come from many different ways. Obviously, if you're fighting something like chronic fatigue syndrome, maybe you've got a virus, a flu, maybe you've got stress, maybe you've got a combination of things going on in your life right now that is causing an energy deficit. But if we think about the key common energy deficit with chronic fatigue syndrome, it certainly is overwhelm. And when I say overwhelm, there's an umbrella term that kind of fits in that box, right? If we think about overwhelm, we think about perfectionism traits, lack of boundaries, lack of self-worth, lack of confidence, fear, isolation, worry, right? All of these things come under the umbrella of overwhelm. And here's the crazy part that you don't even realize. You might be trying so hard with your recovery that it's actually causing you overwhelm and causing you stress, and that is why you are not getting better. If you're trying a really healthy diet right now and you're being really strict and you're being really strenuous about it and you're coming from a place of desperation, and by the way, if you're here right now or you've been there before, it is not your fault, right? Of course, the only thing you want is to get your old life back. And the problem with chronic fatigue syndrome that comes with it is this sense of urgency that you have in order to get better. And interestingly enough, urgency feels like an emergency. I'll say this again. Urgency feels like an emergency. And you think you feel calm and relaxed and have heaps of energy when you're in urgency or you're going through an emergency, right? Unfortunately not. It takes a lot of energy when we are in emergency situations, and that's why cortisol levels rise, adrenaline rises, stress hormones rise, but then the after effect of that is exhaustion and depletion, and energy depletion is the biggest cause of this. And so if we understand that and we go, okay, well, we know that stress and overwhelm causes energy deficits, particularly when you're going through something like chronic fatigue syndrome. And by the way, this isn't me saying what you're going through is all in your head or in your mind. It is not. What you are going through is 100% real. It's 100% neurological and physical. And it also affects how you feel on an emotional, mental well-being level too. You can't deny that. And the key here is it's not the fact that it's a mental emotional problem, but how we respond to stimulus and stress will determine how much energy we have or don't have. And so these 5 uncommon ways are never talked about. And in fact, I would love if every single doctor could talk about these things, because it would help you with your health and your well-being and ultimately your recovery. And so now we understand that overwhelm is a real silent killer when it comes to stalling and stunting progress with your recovery. And so we need to have a look at, well, what are the things that we're doing that are actually depleting our energy because of overwhelm? Number 1, this is a big one. When we're constantly on the search, we're constantly doing things that are actually creating more urgency and more emergency. And this could just be our thought process, like our thinking, where we're thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to get better. Oh my God, I better try this supplement or this pill or this person or this guru. And you're coming from a place of stress. And in the famous words of Dr. Lionel Lubitz, one of my favorite doctors in the world who specialized in ME chronic fatigue syndrome, he said, Toby, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. And that's what we want to think about in the first one. And the first one is all about interrupting unhelpful patterns. We call it the pattern interrupt. We have a whole training on it. And in fact, it's one of the key trainings in the Progress Your Health Accelerator course that's opening the doors tomorrow. And the pattern interrupt training is life-changing because it helps you interrupt any unhelpful pattern that is actually not useful for your recovery. Now, this is just one way, one uncommon way to cut the overwhelm, to cut any unnecessary energy depletion. And there are many ways you can use the pattern interrupt to counteract these unuseful patterns and behaviors. You want to liken it to, whenever you feel that stress inside your body or overwhelm, or you're constantly battling yourself and you're in your mind and you're overthinking about what you're going through, particularly when symptoms are bad. That's one of the worst things. When your symptoms are at an all-time high, maybe you had a terrible sleep for a week, maybe some stressful things happened, or maybe you're just fighting a cold or a flu, or maybe you overdid it, right? You might have pushed yourself way too hard beyond your current capacity, and you're kind of pushing and crashing like a yo-yo. And basically what's happening is your brain and your body can't adapt to the stimulus that you're giving it. And so when symptoms come on, this is when unuseful patterns start to arise, right? It's just like, oh my God, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. And so we fight the actual fight. And nothing great ever really comes from fighting. If you think about it, fighting is exhausting. And I have one little caveat tip in this whole conversation, which is, what if you didn't have to fight? I often get people sending emails to my team saying, Toby, I just need to beat this thing. It's almost like their fists are up, they're ready to fight, and they're like, I just need to beat this chronic fatigue syndrome. I need to beat it. And my question to them and my invitation to them is always, well, what if there was actually nothing to fight? What if chronic fatigue syndrome was a message, it was an invitation for you to look after your health and your well-being and help you get healthy and start living again? What if we could come from a place of health-focused solutions versus symptom-focused, illness-focused solutions, right? It's two different things. One, we're bringing in a sense of compassion, but we're also positively focused on the things that are actually going to increase our health and our well-being, which will affect our physiology, our neurology, and our overall well-being. Okay. So number one, you want to interrupt any unhelpful patterns that are getting in the way of your recovery. You want to catch yourself and you want to make sure that you're not repeating that unconsciously all the time, right? We're going to go deeper into this later. But number two is boundaries. This is a crazy one that if you're not aware of this and you don't understand this, you are going to deplete your energy super fast, particularly in the season of holidays, which is coming up very shortly. But this, regardless of whether it's holidays or not, boundaries are so important because this is an energy drainer if you don't know how to hold boundaries or at least put them in place in the first place. And boundaries don't have to be big and scary. They can just be calm and soft, right? Let's say someone gives you an invitation. Hey, do you want to, let's go play sport down in the park? Or, hey, do you want an alcoholic drink? You can just say, no, thanks. I'm just going to chill out here now. Or I'm not drinking alcohol at the moment, but thanks anyway. I'll stick to cranberry juice or soda or whatever it is you're going to drink, right? Healthy boundaries could look like, hey, I'm just going to take the next hour to recuperate. I'm feeling a little bit tired and need to re-energize and restore myself. See, the key is we want to state the boundary clearly and simply so it doesn't actually drain us. Now, most of the time when you're going through this, you feel like you need to over-explain yourself. And because people don't really understand it and understand you feel like you even need to work harder to get them on your side to make sure they understand how bad you're actually feeling. My question to you is, how is that making you feel? More often than not, you feel more tired, more exhausted when you've over-explained yourself trying to set this boundary, but it's kind of like kerfuffled in this whole conversation of, this is so bad and I'm struggling and these are all my symptoms and da-da-da, and all of a sudden you feel worse than you did before you even opened your mouth. And so the key here is the art of enrolling people with where you're at in an empowering way. Again, one of the trainings in the Progress Your Health Accelerator course, I'm so passionate about this because how you say things matter. How you say things matter. So be aware of making sure that you put yourself at least first or at least equal to everybody around you, particularly if you're a mother. It is very, very easy to get swamped up into that feeling of perfectionism and that you need to do everything in an all or nothing traits. That is what's going to trip you up and deplete energy, and you wonder why that you're not getting better because you're literally in an energy deficit. So imagine you've got 10 credits per day. Some of these credits get used just by waking up and going to the bathroom and getting ready and cooking and eating and moving around the house and daily function, depending on your capacity. But if you don't have boundaries and you're not setting the right things up over time, what's actually happening is you're actually spending the 10 credits and more. So there's going to be days, particularly over the holiday season, if you don't have boundaries, you'll spend 20 credits. And so all of a sudden you're 10 credits behind on the next day. And that's when it feels like, you're dragging your feet and the symptoms are coming on and you're just not feeling aligned and on track. And my goal for you is to feel aligned and on track. And that's how we know that you are going to start to progress. And I'll show you some real stories of people who have actually done this because, we work with clients in 66 countries all around the world, and people just like you progress their health all the time. And a perfect example is this young lady here. Well, she's not that young now. She's super smart, and she's doing a PhD, and she's just done her first scientific author paper. She actually helps in the realm of cancer research. Fascinating woman, and Nina, her name is. And she did this post in one of our up-level programs. So we have a lifestyle integration program for people who are getting better or who are better but are integrating into life. And so she posts here that she just did her first spin class and not worried about a crash whatsoever. Besides being crazy intense, her body has never felt this good in over 3 years. She recently started ceramics class, wheel throwing. She's also going on a surf trip to Portugal. She just hosted a dinner party on the weekend, and she's publishing her first scientific paper, like I said before. She said, I have had this long list of things that I've wanted to try after recovering, and now that I'm here, I can't believe it. And I'm just enjoying every last bit. I can't believe this is my life now. And yes, this may sound like a lot of things and new and might seem a little bit scary, but I have trust in my body again. And my body knows it can trust me every step of the way. And you can see the smile on her face, and just super, super cool. And so these are some of the key things that Anina put in place in her recovery that helped her achieve this over time. Not overnight. Let's get this straight. This isn't like a quick fix or an overnight cure. And if anyone's telling you that, then you need to run the other way. Hopefully by now you understand this, and it's what you do with your well-being and your health that's going to matter the most, right? So we help people help themselves get better. We don't actually get them better. And you can see Anina is a perfect example of this, right? If we move over here, Julie's another amazing example. This lady, that was a photo of her on week 1 before getting help on the stuff that we're talking about today. Week 1, right? Zoom out, and you can see, if you're watching this on video, you can see you're like looking at a different person. Three months difference those photos were taken, and we're looking at a different human being. She said she can't believe and realize how huge her progress has been in both how she feels mentally and physically, while what she can do consistently day to day. Now, I can say that was posted a long time ago. I think 9 months ago. She's doing so good now. Her life is literally coming back online, so to speak. And these clients gave me permission to share this to the public because they wanted to inspire other people, because they've been inspired by other people before this. So I'm sharing this with you because it's important that you understand the importance of doing these things, right? We can talk about it all we want, but until we apply it and put it in our life, nothing's really going to change. So both these two women put the pattern interrupt training into practice, started to put boundaries, healthy, appropriate boundaries for themselves, for their health. I don't want you to look at boundaries as a bad thing. I want you to look at it as a positive thing, right? Something that's going to enhance your life, not de-hance your life. We need to look at it as an enhancer, not the opposite. So we can reframe that and start to see boundaries as a good thing. It will be easier to do. And of course, we have a whole training on that inside the Accelerator. This one's a big one, identity and behavior. This is the third uncommon way to increase energy and progress your health. Now, if you think about it, we call this the illness identity versus the health identity. The illness identity is one that is absorbed in self-pity, in victim mode. And again, if you're there right now, it is not your fault. God damn, the medical system has mostly let you down, because they tell you that there's either nothing you can do, they say good luck, they say drink more water, eat better food, go to bed, sleep more, exercise, sweat it out, think more positively, da-da-da-da-da, and none of it's helpful. In fact, it's really harmful. Like the amount of people we get coming to us every single week who said, oh, my doctor said there's nothing I can do to get better. My doctor just said I was depressed. My doctor just said it's all in my head. All of these things has really made a terrible imprint and terrible belief systems that haven't helped these people feel good about the recovery process, right? There's so many myths out there. Another myth is that, older people can't get better. That is simply not true. We see this time and time again. We've got people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s who are getting better. It is just a myth that is getting circled around the internet from people who aren't better, who are in that age category, okay? So it's very important to decide and decipher whether you are taking information from someone who is where you want to be or from someone who is not where you want to be. If we talk about identity and behavior, illness identity is one stuck in, there's nothing for me. I can't get better. Right. And all of a sudden, there is never going to be energy surplus when we are coming from a place of illness identity. We are simply going to be stuck in the management process of illness, right? We believe at CFS Health that you don't have to manage illness. You can get healthy and you can start to live again. Why do we believe this? Because we just have proof for 15 years plus, right? We see it every single week. I'll show you more photos. This is literally just a few screen grabs just of people that I've got on my computer right now. Perfect example. This is Mark. Week 1, looks like a different human being, kind of looks 15 years older than he does in picture 2, which was only 8 months later from the original picture. We're looking at 2 different human beings here. You cannot tell me that progressed health isn't possible at any age. It looks like he had Botox. That's how much better he looks right now. And he didn't have any Botox. He just did these health fundamentals that we're talking about. Again, this is not spoken about in the medical world, and I just wish it was. And so if you are stuck in illness identity, I want you to take that hat off. Imagine for a second if we could put a different hat on. If we could put the health-focused hat on, where, yes, maybe right now you're not where you want to be, right? But maybe your future can be different if you start doing these right things at the right time so you can start getting the right results. The first step for change, though, is to change the way you look at things. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so I want you to become aware of, am I in illness identity victim mode or am I in health-focused mode? You'll feel the switch. And eventually, if you think about it, every single healthy human being has a health-focused approach. Right? Every single person who recovers from chronic fatigue syndrome does not have an illness identity. They do not identify as someone with an illness, right? They identify themselves as someone who suffered with chronic fatigue syndrome and are now on the journey to better health. And as they get healthier and stronger, that illness identity starts to fade completely. And so you just want to become aware of that, because it's not the actual belief system that is the problem. It's the actions and behaviors that come from having that belief system. So just pay attention to that. Again, we have a whole deeper training process which breaks down how to let go of the illness identity so you can become more health focused. I've already given you some keys right here, which is to become health focused, thinking about what you do want in your future versus what you don't want. That is the first starting point. Focusing on what you do want versus what you don't want. Focusing on what you can do versus focusing on what you can't do. Start there. Once you start there, that'll build up and it'll be even more incredible over the weeks, months, and years to come as it will build, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. This one's really important. Number 4, another uncommon way to progress your health is getting back in the driver's seat of your recovery. And we call this the circle of influence and the circle of control. And if you think about it, one of the hardest parts about chronic fatigue syndrome is you feel like you're out of control, particularly when you're at the mercy of the doctor who tells you that there's nothing you can do. Particularly when you're at the mercy when someone says, oh, here, you've just got to, maybe you can find maybe the magic pill that will get you better, only to be disappointed and feel like you're more out of control. Remember what I said at the start of this video? Urgency feels like emergency. And again, that is coming from a place of I'm not in control. And so one of the key components here of progressing your health is to get back in the driver's seat of your recovery and focus on what you can control. That's extremely important. And so think about that for a moment. What can you control? I'd love you to get your phone out right now. I'd love you to get a pen and paper out right now and write down or type in, what are 5 things that you can control in your life right now? What are they? Can you control what you listen to? For the most part, yeah. Can you control who you take advice from? Yeah, you can. Can you control how many glasses of water you drink per day? What time you go to bed, what time you wake up, what you do with your day, what you do with your routine, your structure, what you put in your mouth, what you don't put in your mouth? I'm just giving you a few little tips here. There is literally hundreds of things you can control. You just don't realize it. But the key is we want to become aware of this and really start to pay attention to this in our daily life. Because when we start to control the controllables, we start to move forwards with our health. Right. And so again, we have a deeper dive into this on figuring out what can we control, what can we influence, and what can't we control. When we become aware of this on a macro scale, we can really start to move forwards with our progress, with our health, and with our life. Super, super important. Last one, again, oh my God, this needs to be written on a pamphlet at every single doctor's clinic in the world. It would literally make my dream come true. And we're working on it. Don't worry. We are working on getting all this information into doctors' clinics around the world. The word appropriateness. This is a big one. Now, see, the problem is when you feel good, you push yourself to the brink, right? You feel good for one day and you try and do everything. You become Superman, Superwoman, Mother of the Year, even though you already are Mother of the Year, Father of the Year, XYZ, right? And you push, and then you do everything that's inappropriate based off your current capacity and level of stamina. And then your brain and body can't adapt to the stimulus. And so your brain and body say, that's enough. And it shuts down. And all of a sudden your symptoms flare up, you feel horrible, and you can't get anywhere, right? We need to stop that. Now, how do you stop that? The first 4 uncommon ways is definitely going to help you. But most importantly, you need to do what's appropriate. Now, the question that I want you to ask yourself in the moment is, what feels appropriate for me? Does this feel appropriate? Am I running a marathon, or is this actually appropriate and I'm going to be okay? Right. I like to start from the 50% rule. So do 50% less than you think you should do just initially for a short period of time, just to gain more confidence in your body and your awareness and your body wisdom. So 1, we don't go backwards. 2, we create consistency, which builds resiliency. And then your brain and body is going to be better at adapting to new stimulus over time. And so this is another sure way to progress your health in the right way. And so I want you to remember that word. What is appropriate for me? Appropriateness is the key to getting started with your recovery, because consistency over intensity matters. If you keep doing this all or nothing approach and this perfectionist style of recovery, which doesn't work, by the way, when you're trying to get everything perfect and you're super black and white on everything, it's tripping you up with your recovery. And so you want to avoid the opposite of everything I spoke about today, right? You don't want to do what's inappropriate. You don't want to get stuck on all the things you can't control. You don't want to get stuck in this illness identity that is keeping you feeling like a burden, right? Because you're not a burden. You don't have to suffer like this. You do not have to suffer like this, because let's face it, we know recovery is possible. This is another example. This is Tara Putnam. She's amazing. A lady from America. When she was so unwell, she lost so much weight and she could barely leave the bed. That's how sick she was. She couldn't even look after her daughter. She went through a divorce. She went through hell and back to get the life she has today. And now Tara is fully recovered. This is her now. She's fully healthy and well. She's took her daughter on this amazing holiday overseas, and she has her life back. She had to do all the things we spoke about in this video to get her life back. And of course, there is a lot more to this than just these 5 uncommon ways. But I wanted to speak about the unspoken, because these are things that you might be missing in your recovery that you might not even be aware of. And then just simply changing these are going to change your life for better. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this inspiration. This is one of my favorite women in the world. This is Janet Krabbe. She's the eldest member that we've ever had at CFS Health, and she lives in Hawaii. And I went and visited her in her home when I was over there for a conference, and it was just so special. There's her late husband, Eric, as well, and we had lunch together. And, you know, she's progressed her health so much that when I got there, she said, "Toby, look, I can move my arms and my legs now, and I'm strong, and I do gardening." And she showed me her whole garden, and it was amazing. And Janet put all of this stuff into work. Janet, if you are watching this, big aloha to you. I miss you. We'll see you soon. that these are the things that Janet did to get her health back and progress her health. And of course, there is a lot more to it than just these five, but these five are the big five keys that a lot of people are not getting taught about. They're not getting shown how, they're not getting the practical information to apply in their own lives. So I hope this has been an eye-opener for you. Now, these are things you can take away and implement right away. And of course, leave a comment on what was your biggest takeaway and insight from today's session. Big love, and we'll see you soon.